thinking. How is knowing distinct from thinking? A gross object can only be a sense object. Without the senses, a sense object can never be said to exist. Therefore, what is called an object is nothing but a sensation. Likewise, it can be said that an object of thought is nothing but thought itself. In knowledge, however, there is no such instrument as the senses or the mind. Therefore, to say that I know anything is wrong. There can never be a subject-object relationship in knowledge. An ignorant man does not draw any distinction between knowing on the one hand and perceiving, thinking, and feeling on the other. Thus, the ignorant one superimposes an object on knowledge also. But can thinking take one to the truth? You can reach the background, the ultimate, through any feeling, provided you are sincere and consistent to the last. Take, for example, hate. Here you must continue to hate the Creator as well as the created, including all the objects of your perceptions, thoughts, and feelings, particularly those of your own body and mind, and everything you call yours. Ultimately, when everything other than yourself is thus separated from you, you remain alone in your own glory as pure consciousness and happiness. Looking back from that position, you find that all that you hated once was nothing but consciousness, and so you absorb it all into you as consciousness. Thus, hate is ultimately transformed into love. Mind and truth. Can mind lead me to realization? We speak of instinct, reason, intuition, the overmind or supermind, and such words. In all these, mind persists, and you have not gone beyond it. For realization, you have to reach the general background of all of these, which is pure consciousness or peace. From any stage except the first, namely instinct, this background can be attained directly and with the same result. But evolution by itself, continued to any extent, will never take you to this background of your real nature. The futility of using the mind to know the truth. The mind functions in a long series of activities in the nature of subject-object relationship. But the last action of the series is an exception to this order. It is an action of perfect identification, as when knowing happiness in deep sleep by being it. This last knowledge is non-empirical, and so is transcendental. This knowledge is not opposed to anything else, but is the ground of all empirical knowledge. It is from this transcendental knowledge that the mind can rightly be analyzed. You get that stand only on listening to the truth from the lips of the Guru. All mental exercises in yoga strengthen the mind and tighten the hold of the ego, while what you need is to transcend the ego mind itself. With the inception of thought or memory, you make the transcendental appear limited and separate it from yourself. This is how the mind makes a mess of the truth. To use such a mind to understand the truth is foolish. When the mind dies a natural death in deep sleep, one stands free as this transcendental knowledge. Therefore, create the same condition knowingly by ignoring the mind and its vagaries altogether and go beyond it. In the light of the transcendental truth as heard from the Guru. There is no other path to true liberation. All the so-called paths only pave the way, and some even obscure and distance the truth. Therefore, beware. Beware of promises, pleasures, and powers achieved or anticipated. All these seduce you from the truth. Can you speak about how unselfishness helps you to transcend the mind? Every time you do an act in strict conformity with ethical laws, you know on the surface that it takes you to the unselfish part. But if you examine the same act carefully, you will find that every such act takes you even further to the real background, beyond the mind's plane. This glimpse of your real nature expresses itself as pleasure when you come back to the mind's level. But this you immediately attribute to the mind's activity just preceding it. Hence, you miss the spiritual values of the communion with your real nature. In every act called good or virtuous, there is a grain of self-sacrifice, however small. Can you speak about vidya, vritti, and mind? Vidya, vritti, functioning consciousness, higher reason, higher logic, and shuddha sattva all denote the same faculty, if it may be called a faculty. Even in worldly enjoyment, it is your own real nature of peace that you experience as happiness. For example, you enjoy happiness listening to sweet music. Here, music helps you only to empty your mind of all thoughts other than music. And finally, it is emptied of the thought of music also. Thus, the mind ceases to be, and you come to happiness, and that is your real nature. It is wrong to believe that the happiness came from the hearing of music, because music was not there when the happiness was enjoyed. Can you speak of purification of the mind? The purification of the mind is sought only as a help to reach the truth. The best way to purify the mind is to think of the truth which you are and which is purity itself. When you know you are the purest of the pure, all thought of purifying the mind drops away. Your earnestness and sincerity to reach the ultimate truth is the best means of purifying your mind before realizing the truth. The mind becomes pure by its own death. The attempt to purify the mind by any amount of other effort is futile. Can you speak of the significance of front and back in a spiritual context? To the mind it is said, you should first look behind and see me there, and then I will draw you into the inmost core of your being. What does this mean? And what is the significance of front and back so far as the mind is concerned? That is what you're asking. And the answer is, the mind moves only in the realm of the body samskaras, the habituated conditioning, or vasanas, the latent tendencies. So by front, the mind means objects, and by back, it means absence of objects. The mind is asked to look back in its own language. Therefore, it has to give up objects as a whole when it gives up the front. But then it does not realize that the back, which is just the reverse of the front, has also simultaneously disappeared with the front. So when the mind has given up objects and tries to look back, it is really left within itself, which is the inside of the mind, in the mind's own language. This is how the mind is drawn into the inmost core of one's being.